So print these out, and I want for you, and this will be an activity that you'll actually have to turn in to me. So you will send me this standards document scanned or pictures of it or whatever of your annotations, because I want for you to dialogue with the text. I want for you to, if there's questions while you're reading and you can't paraphrase it, then something in there, a keyword, a concept needs deeper investigation. And there are places and resources that we can use for that deeper investigation. With social studies, the bulk of it is going to be you going through those TEXES and making sure that you know everything. So I would write it on this document, because I'm going to show you.
So I have to turn this into you.
Yes.
In like how I understand it in my writing, like paraphrasing it.
Paraphrasing it. Some of it might have pictures. You might write on the other side of the page your TEKE analysis by grade level on the back of these pages, and then just scan them back to me, send the document back to me. I want to see how you annotate this document, your metacognition with your standards, because, and I want for you to use this document as a place where you write your notes about the TEKES as well, because they are they overlapping, they parallel. So we have, and let me get my annotation stuff here. Like, I can't annotate as cool here. I wish I could, because then I could throw pictures, and I can't write on it very well, because I'm the worst digital like scribbler, you know what I'm saying? Like trying to take notes and trying to do drawings digitally. I am just really, really bad. And that's because I was not that fantastic of a drawer with my whiteboard and whatnot. Sometimes my kids would laugh at my illustrations, but whenever we would learn new vocabulary, like I would try to draw out whatever it was that we learned, if I could. If not, I would find a visual representation. With many of the things that I had to learn, I would rewrite them in my own words, right? So each one of these standards, you should be able to paraphrase, like, so that you could say to yourself, standard 1 is mostly about this. Standard 5 is mostly about geography. It's about geography in Texas, the United States, in the world. That's it. And all of that, obviously that's not it, but it makes it sort of in a compartment for your brain. And when you are doing a kinesthetic activity, like writing down notes, paraphrasing, which is metacognition, and thinking about your thinking, do I understand this? Can I say it in a different way? Because if you say it in a different way, then you know it, period. So that's what I want for you to do with this document. I want you to really engage in many of the strategies. So I want for you to chunk the text wherever you can. So if a whole bunch of the standards correlate with each other, then do a little bracket and write your little notes on how these bunch to go together and they mean to do this. So you work with it. How I want for you to engage with the text in an organic, sort of genuine way, where you're investigating words and concepts and people that you don't already have a working knowledge with. And by working, I mean that you would be able to instruct the students, because everything that the student has to know and be able to do, we too have to know and be able to do. And then on top of that, we have to be able to know how to do it so we can model, and then be able to instruct areas of weakness and redirect areas of weakness, support areas of weakness.
Okay, so these here, the standards are the TEKES, or are they not the same thing? No.
They are not the same thing. So these standards are what you're going to print out. They correlate with the TEKES. So we'll look at it, the TEKES really quickly. The TEKES are for the students. These are and like I said, they're parallel, because a lot of what they say for the students, they already say it in your standards. They just go into bigger detail and they give you examples of things that you have to know about. Where they don't go into detail about people in your standards, they do in the TEKES.
Oh, okay.
So history, geography, economics, government, citizenship, culture, science, technology, and society. And what you're going to find, and you can actually make these drawings when you do this for your homework assignment. These are going to be what the TEKS are about. And you'll see standard 3 is only about the TEKS. Referencing the TEKS, Texas knowledge and skills, TEKS, be able to plan and implement effective curriculum, instruction, assessment, and evaluation of their knowledge and skills. So these are going to end up being the main strands in the social studies grade levels. So same for kindergarten. There's going to be history TEKS, there's going to be geography TEKS, there's going to be economics TEKS, government, citizenship, culture, science. Now, there's not going to be very much as far as economics for kindergarten. That section of the TEKS strand is going to be super skimpy, like itty bitty, nothing, casi nada. But other areas we'll have meatier sections, but we're building all throughout, vertically aligning social studies kindergarten to social studies first grade to social studies second grade, building on knowledge and skills to get them where they need to be. Fourth grade through eighth grade, they study particulars, like they have a particular focus. And so that's what's important for you to look at those areas, be familiar with, and I'm pretty familiar with it now after having, tutored so much. I was not a history teacher, but actually many of my brother-in-laws are history teachers. I do know a lot about history. I worked a lot cross-curricular with my social studies teachers on any campus that I worked at. I was going to talk to the social studies teacher and say, what time period are you working on? So that I could do poetry from that time period, so they could see that poetry reflects real life,
Very much.
and yeah, absolutely. And it allows them to go to their social studies class with prior knowledge and feel that sort of that high of knowing something and making a connection between different things. And the same way, reverse wise, they come to me with knowledge already. When I tell them we're reading, poetry of the Civil War, and they say, oh, well, we're learning about the Civil War and and what all they're doing. I'm like, okay. And then when we read the different poems, it gives it a different context. They understand
different perspective.
Absolutely.
Because they know what the person was feeling or going through.
Exactly, why they wrote that, what they might have meant by this, how their allusions might actually mean different things like war. And so it gives them a deeper understanding. It gives them prior knowledge. It makes my life easier. It makes a social studies teacher easier. So fourth grade is Texas history, like life.
History.
Yeah. It's like we're just getting into our history in a way where we're beginning to set up the stage to discuss some of the big tragedies, the Alamo, the wars, all of that stuff, the Native Americans and the struggle there, and all of it. So, but in a light way that is appropriate for fourth graders, because that's what we understand, and what you're tested during the PPR, you're tested EC through 12, because you're supposed to know what's appropriate for every grade level, from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, and based on where they are physically, cognitively, maturity wise, their moral compass, their motivation, all of that matters as far as our planning and the types of discussions that we have and the types of topics that we even cover. So fourth grade is social studies light, and we'll see that right now. So these are your standards. This is law. The lawmakers got together, the scholars got together, and they said, in order to be a teacher in social studies, you have to be able to you have to know these things, and you have to be able to do these things. So this is our Bible, right? And every content area has their own, with their own standards.
So this little assignment, I would have to turn this into you anytime before I even test or anything like that, or
anytime before you test.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime before you test. Have you already scheduled a date?
Yes, December 19th.
Okay, excellent. Perfect. Yeah, you'll have plenty of time. And that way, if you have any real questions, especially while you're looking for the one, looking through the one, standard 3 is about curriculum and instruction. And because that's more pedagogy and you are a new teacher, you might not know all of best practices.
Mhm.
And we were actually supposed to have a excuse me, a PPR session yesterday, but nobody showed up. Like nobody signed in. And my daughter actually wasn't feeling well, my youngest. So I was
When
kind
is
of,
your next PPR session? So I can put it on my calendar. Or
oh,
do you just
excellent.
go by like volunteer or like if someone requests it, or do you your set dates?
Yeah, I normally have them on Wednesday at 6:30 in the afternoon, from
Okay,
6:30 to
that's
7.
fine. So that way I can put it here on my calendar, because if I don't look at my calendar every day, I don't even know what day we are, honestly.
Oh, I know. I have calendars everywhere. Like I'm so
Yeah.
curious. Like I am a crazy person with calendars, but
So then your next one would be November
next
2nd.
Wednesday. Yeah, it
November.
was about, we were supposed to have one yesterday, and I was supposed to have a guest speaker, which is Miss Leo. She, let me just erase this really quickly.
Okay, so I'm gonna put here November 2nd, PPR.
Yes, like here is the whole thing we were going to use is PPR, but we're going to talk about all of that stuff. And this is important. This is what standard 3 is about. It's about taking your TEKS, the curriculum, the standards, and planning for the people that you have, for the and I'll give you the whole spiel later. But what you do as a teacher is amazing. What teachers do, if you do it correctly and you're a good teacher, like you deserve a raise and a medal and a parade at the end of the year, because
Mhm.
teaching is a science, literally a science. Like we
Mhm.
studied it as a science. There's scientific theories that go with what we have to do to apply the way that we plan and instruct and assess.
Right. The methods and the implementations are effective, but if they're not,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you're an artist, because not everything works with everyone. So it's a science. Like we know this works with everyone, except when
Yeah.
you have this group of special population, or when they're having this and they don't have the language yet. So we have to paint different things in the lesson for the students and to help craft these humans, because our job is incredibly difficult. It's our product is a human. Not only is it their ability to do the TEKS, which is what it is on paper, but really also their self-esteem, the way that they treat others in the classroom,
They're
the
social
whether or not there is,
emotional.
yes, their social emotional learning, whether or not they can be resilient. Some of the stuff we do is hard, some of it's boring, and that's life. There are things that are hard and sometimes boring, but we
Mhm.
do them and we get through them, and then we have a little something. So it's knowing what to do to get past that, to build resilience, to build that cognitive resilience against fatigue. Even it happens a lot in math. Kids are like shut down. Nobody if you, especially if you're a smart kid and and all of a sudden you're having difficulty in math, you're going to shut down. If you're not used to mistakes, you don't have that resiliency. Maybe kindergarten was super easy because it was just knowing numbers, but now you're doing stuff and it's difficult. Building that up is really important, because if not, it creates this whole like sort of fear for the content area. And math is accessible to every human. It literally is the most common of languages. It's the same in every culture. And yeah, it like the universal language, so everyone can access it. We just need different supports in order to do that.
Right.
So our job is really difficult. Pedagogy is really difficult. That's why this exam is sort of challenging, and that's why there's so much. I feel like I talk to every intern and they tell me, I feel so overwhelmed. Like there's so much I have to do and there's so much that I have to learn. And it's true, there are a lot of things, but just take a deep breath, because you have in Teacher Builder just access to so many experts. Like for social studies, Mr. Leo is an expert social studies teacher. He taught it for, I want to say, I don't know, 13, 14 years, something like that. I taught English language arts and reading for 16 years. I've taught teachers every single content area since 2012 and full-time since 2014. So there's a lot of people that can help you with any of your assignments or any of the coursework or exams, or even just planning for your class and activities, because Mr. Leo was a very effective teacher. He had like a very high passing rate on his STAR exams. Miss Leo, who was supposed to be the guest speaker yesterday, has a master's degree in special education. And she is still a special education teacher, but she's one of our expert instructors that we can glean from if need be. So I'll be inviting her to one of the sessions so that she can answer your questions, because she literally is the guru on making sure that you're implementing IEPs the way it's supposed to be done. Because like you could lose your whole license if you have a group of students and they have an IEP and you sign for it, because every teacher does sign for their students' IEP. It's confidential. You don't share it with people. You don't leave it for the substitute. It's a serious document, but also very serious are the supports and accommodations, that the ARD has decided this student needs in order to perform at grade level. So when we don't do that and the student fails, parents come back. We've broken the law by abusing their rights as a disabled student, and we can't have that. So it is a lot. And that's why it really upsets me when people are sort of like dismissive of teachers, like, oh, you chose teaching. I'm like, excuse me. You said what now?
Yeah, it's a big hat to wear, but it's
it really is,
rewarding.
but it's so rewarding. It really is rewarding. And these kids need it. Not all of them, come from, and that's why you have to do so much, and you just have to, because you can dig your feet on the ground or stomp and say, I'm not gonna like cater to these kids, because that's what old teachers used to say. I started teaching in 2003, and I remember I have always taught the way that I taught in 2003. And at one point I was a very young teacher. I couldn't even buy alcohol, but I was a teacher. I was 20 years old. And I always got like that sense that older teachers did. And then, we got email. Email was never a thing. And then it was a thing. And even teachers didn't want to do it. Why do I have to email the parents? Like I sent them, I called them, and then they didn't, but like phones were going out of style, like house phones. And so you had to change. And some teachers that had been teaching for like 40 years were like, no, they must learn the way that I learned. And that's it. I don't care. But like, the thing is that I grew up with teachers like that. Thank God I made it out, okay. But I had ADHD and I was just diagnosed at 40 years old. And so I think about how I had to like compensate as a student to still remain an A student. And it made me like my nerves, like I still have crippling anxiety, but because I had to do certain things, I sat in the front of the class all the time so that I wouldn't get distracted, pay attention. One year in the third grade, I asked my teacher, can I sit in the front? And she said, absolutely not. I make the seating arrangement. And like, I knew I needed to. I didn't know why or how or what, but she said no. And I was the kind of student that I was a good student. I certainly wouldn't argue with a teacher. So that was just it. And I didn't sit in the back. And so just understanding that students are humans, you know what I mean? Like they're little people with feelings like dealing in the science of humans. Our product is not just a shoe, it's not just a coding and it comes out of software and that's it. It is a person who is diverse in a multifaceted way. you know,
Yep.
that might need several layers of apport that require accommodation, and that is subject to change, right? So
Mhm.
they're not even always going to stay the same. Sometimes they need a support, and then the language proficiency goes up and they don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they're learning from their behavioral intervention plan, their BIP, and so their behavior is getting a little bit better, and they're learning to control their emotions. Whatever the case may be, it's a rolling ball, and we have to plan for the people that we have, which is why, you know, I always used to tell my teachers, because I given a group of teachers at the beginning of the year to observe for the year and supervise in their first year of teaching. And you know, I would ask them, do you need help with your lesson plans? And some of them would tell me proudly, oh no, I finished for the whole year, like I'm done for the whole year. But you haven't even started yet, though. You haven't started teaching your students. It can be a skeleton, but you have got to bring in, and that's a good way to plan. You can have like an essay, not essay, skeleton. Sorry, I said that because I was thinking of like in terms of an English teacher, but
Mhm.
you know, a skeleton of what your objective is for the TEK, right? Because that's what, you know, you get your objectives from the TEKs. Your objectives need to be measurable. They need to be about the TEKs. And where are we at? Social studies. So you can either do this, you can either print out, because this is available now and it didn't used to be. So you'll need a portion of the elementary and the middle school section. So, but they didn't used to have this before. It was just available by looking on the web. It was super annoying.
That's on TEA.
I will text you right now the links, or email you the links.
Okay, so I'm gonna need to get the elementary ones and then some of the middle school.
Right. And your standards. So remember how I said that the social studies, your standards, that's like your Bible.
Mhm.
Well, this is the student's Bible. This is what they have to, this is what they decided in law. Look, it's law. And in the Texas Education Code, much of it is like, it's law that the students must do this. They must learn these skills, and they must learn these facts. And so if they must learn them, then we need to know them. And that's why this and the other document, which tells you what you need to be able to do in the classroom with this knowledge, those are the main documents where the exam comes
Can
from.
you please leave all varsity cheerleaders to the gym? All varsity cheerleaders to the gym.
Sorry, they're making
And please do not
announcements.
count them out them for the next period. Thank you.
So I taught 7th grade through 12th grade. That's ELAR. And my first year teaching was in 2003, 2004. And I was like, I had a 1.5-year-old, and I think I just found out, or I hadn't found out yet, that I was pregnant. And I agreed. No, I hadn't found out. That's why I agreed to be the cheerleading sponsor my
The cheer
first year
sponsor.
teaching. Yeah.
You're like, what was I thinking?
No idea what I was thinking. Holy shnikes. But you know what? Those girls, they're all adults now, because that was in 2003. They're adults now. And some of them, they had me again in high school, because that year I taught 7th grade. And then I again taught, they went to 8th grade, but then I moved to the high school. So I had many of them freshman year, and then I moved and I was teaching sophomores. And so I had many of them. So for a lot of them, we have such a deep connection. And, you know, at that time, the beginning of social media was just beginning. In fact, it was so new that I got away with writing my master's thesis on how my students wrote on MySpace. But it was before there were like rules against any of that stuff. And I had already noticed, and because we had done an assignment for Romeo and Juliet, where I made a page, Miss Sauceda's English, high school English page, and the students had to add themselves as friends, and they had to have conversations in between the characters and make a character page for that. But that was when MySpace was a big deal.
Yeah. That was the it thing.
That was the it thing. But yeah, it's not anymore. And you can't be all talking to your students on like Facebook or
Yeah.
whatever. So at some point I told them, I never added them on my personal things, but we did have this assignment on MySpace. And when Facebook became a thing and many of them had it and they were cheerleaders, and I would say, and I had little kids, so like they loved coming to my class and playing with my little kids when I'd be after school tutoring. They'd say, "Can I add you?" And I'd say, "You can't until you graduate."
Yeah.
I'll add you the day you graduate, mama, and then we
Mhm.
could be friends.
Yes, that's
So
how
many
it
of them
is.
are moms and lawyers and really cool stuff. And we're friends now. So even though it's a pain in the butt when you give back and the time, and they don't give you a good stipend. I think my stipend was like $1,000 or something like that. And it was nuts what I went through. And my
Yeah.
son was there every practice with me. And, you really have to give a lot of your life, a time away from your kids, your family.
Yeah.
So it's worth it in the end, but it deserves appropriate payment, in my opinion. So here's the one.
Compensation, definitely.
Absolutely. And if you haven't voted yet, please vote, because Beto wants to pay. He said forever. And I had a conversation with him, but when he was running for Congress, and he has always been so big about teachers, but because he understands that like teaching might be the most important profession that there is, more than doctors, because we make doctors and
Exactly.
scientists. We make the lawyers, we make
Teachers should
the
definitely be
judges,
up there.
and also we can stop the criminals because they come through our classroom. I was just watching not that we can stop them, but we get them and we see those early signs, at what we
Mhm.
learned after Uvalde and some of those things. And I think they failed him, letting him be bullied. And I have opinions about stuff like that. We need to do a better job at really caring about the students. They're not just people in to like blah blah blah. It is their education. It's something that should be sacred, like a beautiful experience for them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I had some teachers that made it a beautiful experience for me, and I will never like forget that. And I
Mhm.
think that makes the difference a lot. And I also had parents that were teachers, and my mom's a nurse. My grandma was a teacher and a principal. So education's in my family, but not everyone has good models. And we know
Yeah.
from Piaget that kids learn via what they see, especially in the beginning ages. They learn via observing. They learn by doing. They learn by getting it wrong, falling over, seeing it happen, watching the thing grow from the ground, talking about it, making connections to real life. We know that that's the way that students learn. And a lot of our students don't get good examples at home, which is why teachers are super.
Yeah, my husband's a big Beto supporter. So he's just like, we need to go vote. So I'm like, yeah, definitely.
Please, 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 please. You probably, not just for the raise, we need it for so many reasons. Like the Republicans have been in control for a very, very long time. And they want to say, oh, there's all this high crime and people coming in. You're in charge, bro. And you've been in charge. Like literally, what have you been doing this entire time? Healthcare is atrocious, like absolutely atrocious in Texas. To get access to it, doctors that don't accept different insurances, it's just a freaking nightmare sometimes. And unless you have good insurance, you're out in the cold. So there's so many problems that Bethel wants to help.
Exactly.
And I'm a really big Bethel person, like Bethel.
Yeah, us too.
I don't know what I'll do. Like I feel like anxiety over it. Like I'm gonna get physically ill because I feel in my lifetime in the state of Texas, there has never been a more consequential, important, like, because election, the Republicans know that if they ruin education and stop funding it, they're going to have more criminals. They're going to have less educated people, and they'll be able to lie and say, we're helping you, while stealing money out of Social Security that people paid into and doing all sorts of other horrible things. And so they need education to not be good, and we need them to be gone. So yay, Beto. I'm going to put this on the internet. So I'm also like really trying to put it out there. It's so important. And he's such a good guy.
It's true. It's really, education is the foundation of a lot of spectrum, like life, because we have them for more days in our walls than their own parents. Than their own parents. So even though it's kind of like, it could be a safe haven for those who don't have that at home. So if we're able to influence them, although they see that at home, but we have them for ours. So if we can give them love and the nurturing and
teach them
something that can
kindness and
alter their
importance of
future.
diversity. Yeah. So it's also why the Republicans have been saying, oh, you know, teachers are pushing this woke agenda. It's not woke. We push diversity. It's literally here in our TEKS. It's in our standards. It's the law, because we know science, what science says, and diversity is always the best. Having you know, meticulously, carefully crafted cooperative learning groups for your students is so important. And you craft them not just based on cultural diversity. Diversity means more than culture. It means language diversity. It means you are pairing high skill oral language proficient in English language students with those that are even native speakers that have lower language proficiency, which a lot of our students do, with ELL students, so that instructional time is, that grouping works for you. You put a GT student, you know, that's a high reader, creative thinker, with maybe like a special ed group, one student there to help. You know, there are ways in which to utilize the student's strengths, the student's needs with that. And that's what diversity means. And the thing is that different perspective diversity in a conversation is always better, because my experience is different than yours. And our two experiences create a better, clearer picture of what we're talking about. And so the more experiences, the more perspectives within, the more salient the conversation is, which is why that carefully crafting and the diverse grouping is really important. But also our making sure that if we have diverse populations within our classroom, that we sort of like applaud and highlight them in a positive way, so that the other students can learn that diversity is beautiful and okay. And you know, being different and other, you know, being neurotypical or having autism is perfectly fine. Having ADHD at 40 years old is perfectly normal. I got 2 master's degrees by the time I was 28. I a little bit think that it's attributed to my ADHD.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so like difference doesn't mean bad, and we need to teach the students that in the classroom, and we really need them to understand that, so that they work with each other better, because they need it in order to get the most out of it. They all need it in order to get the best learning experience. So when you look through these, print them out. This is the view online, and I just like looking at it this way because it's the way I always looked at it, and the other way's new. I'm not trying to be one of those old ladies who can't get the new way, but like, I'm not going to print it out. And this is only 7th grade, and the other one has all the you know, middle school in one document. But I remember I was telling you that 4th grade is social studies. Social studies 4th grade is Texas history, right? Light. And so here we have Texas history, sorry, dark, if you will. And 7th grade, we're again looking at the history of Texas, and we jumped over 5th and 6th, but I think 5th is
I had it on my notes from your previous video, but that's
United States history. No, I just
US
needed to
history.
go through my neurological pathway and sweep it a little bit. It's the United States history light. it's like the light version of it. So we're not really talking about slavery and the Civil War like we're going to later on, but we are getting geographically, historically, all that stuff. And then 6th grade is World History Light. And then you have the deep dive, Texas History Dark, and then United States History Dark, if you will, the
8th grade.
on steroids. So going through this and reading, there are things that you must do and teach in your classroom every year. That is the law. And they might ask you, I'm sure they will, because not many people take the time for the exam to read their TEKS, but you should. Do you have to have them memorized? Absolutely not. That's preposterous. Nobody does that. Nobody memorizes TEKS, but you do have to print them out. You are going to have to refer to them all the time, like every day, you know.
So I'll laminate them.
Right. So yeah, after you write your notes too, though, because I did that with mine. Like that's what my mentor and my supervisor told me to do with my stuff. Her name was Miss Payson. She was the cutest little old lady. I think that she's passed away already. She was very, very old then, like 67 then or something, and she was still teaching, but so sweet. She told me print those out, and I did the whole thing, and she looked at it, and I kept mine for so long, until I think I moved into San Antonio and I was teaching here, and I don't think I had it anymore. But I still had it, and I would add stuff to it. You know, I would keep a working copy, because as you do this, you realize what works and what doesn't work, or like, oh, I saw this new idea for an activity, and this might work better for this. And so you might, you know, still write on it later on. It's a little bit easier with reading, because when I'm talking about, like, you know, a particular thing like expository text, which I think you have to do in yours, if I'm not mistaken, but you'll see, I want for you to read this, you know, all in together. But here, the celebration of Freedom Week, it's the law, and it has to be a full school week, and it has to happen every single, and there are particular things that you need to do and the students need to learn during that week. So just know that.
Celebrate Freedom Week.
Excuse me?
It says there Celebrate Freedom Week, and that's weird that I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's the law. Maybe they call it something else, but yeah, you have to say each social studies class shall include during celebration of Freedom Week, as provided under the Texas Education Code, which is the law, or during another full school week as determined by the Board of Trustees by the school district, appropriate instruction concerning the intent, meaning, and importance of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, including the Bill of Rights, in the historical context. The study of the Declaration of Independence must include the study of the relationship of the ideas expressed in the document to the subsequent American history, including the relationship of its ideas to its rich diversity of our people as a nation of immigrants. Take that, suckers. The American Revolution, the formulation of the United States Constitution, the abolitionist movement, which led to the Emancipation Proclamation, and the women's suffrage movement. Yeah, each school district shall require that during Celebrate Freedom Week.
That's awesome.
That
sounds like fun.
I know it does. It should be fun. I know it's fun at my girls' school.
I feel robbed because I didn't celebrate that in elementary.
Well, I wonder when they added it to the law. I'm not sure if that's always been in there. And these were updated in 2018. So that might be something that's new.
I have not seen an updated history book, but I know that our history books in elementary were the very much not so accurate ones. I don't know if anything has changed.
Yeah, I mean,
so like as far as like, that, you know, that they don't acknowledge that Native Americans were already everywhere. They were
we lived here first. The immigrants were you, homie. Like, we're from here. You came here.
Exactly.
Yeah, like we have always been a nation of immigrants, and now they flipped the script on us and said no more people. But like we always have been. The Indians were here. They welcomed people unbeknownst to them who wanted to just kill them all and leave nothing left of their culture. And the last time I was giving a social studies review, you go delving into the Karankawan history and the people, all of the people, the Native Americans, none of the tribes that lived here in history historically that had millions of people together. There were like 6 of them, 7 of them. None of them exist anymore. The 3 tribes that are in existence here, which you have to know where they are, and what they're named. You have to be able to put them on a map. They're not even the original tribes. The Europeans and then subsequent Texans slaughtered an entire people and then removed their entire culture. There was language, there were things, there were monuments, and the Native Americans in Mexico, their sites were preserved, and were revered. But because those people, Mexico acknowledges that those were their ancestors, that's where they came from, like there's no love lost there. But here it's in a complete erasure. So I don't know, to answer your question, how much of the truth has seeped in. I'll tell you this. I have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old that's going to be 18, and a 14-year-old. When my 14-year-old was in 1st and 2nd grade, because he had older siblings, I taught them the truth. I made them read, like, we don't do any like pretend history in our house. Like, I will read you bedtime stories from the narrative of Frederick Douglass, like when you're in the 3rd grade, but we talked about real things. And so my son at his school that my daughters still go to, all 5 of my kids went to that elementary in San Antonio. They were uncomfortable with his, like, and he was little too. He wasn't mean about it. He just said, like, Columbus wasn't a good guy. He did really bad things. Because I read from his journal, and we talked about how the things that in his journal, he wrote upon getting off the boat and seeing the Native Americans, that they looked perfect for subjugation. And my son, at the ripe age of 2nd grade, or, he said, what a terrible thing to say about someone. Like, when you first meet them, like, oh, I could use you for my bidding. Like, why would you say that? Do you have to go? Are you done?
No. They just had to get some files.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I don't know how truthful, but there are still listed here. Like, if we go back and we look, you'll see Columbus, and there is this, and then it gets worse depending on the school district, because this is very, like, not non-prejudicial, you know what I mean? A group of people decided on this, and there were some Democrats, there were scholars, and people fight against ridiculous stuff being put into the TEXES because they've tried. But and they continue to try to get nonsensical things to be put into the TEXES.
Because they put their own personal preference, their personal opinion. They try to make it biased, but it's not based on how you feel it should be worded. It's like actual factual
the fact of it. But Texas teaches fact, and especially because, and like I said, depending on the school district, depending on what textbook they adopt, their school board adopts, and they're not going to adopt something that's super, like, that's why, and textbook companies know that, and they won't be super liberal. It's a very tight rope to sell in this super political market where people are trying to literally keep secrets about our history, like about literal facts that we can all look up on the internet and see how many people used to live here before you killed them all and stole their land. Like, when my grandmother's mother came over illegally, so she she came over illegal too. She was very little during chattel days. She said at that time the border was very, very new, and they didn't close it so much. It was open all the time. People could come back and forth because it was understood, like, this used to be there, we all used to be one a little while ago, and now this wall is weird, but now it's changed. Now we've always known the wall, so we don't even, they want to put a bigger wall up so we can get even more like they're not us, but they are us and we are them, period. Like we literally are. I
Yes.
saw our family over there. And so my point is that by not telling, you know, the full truth in these history classes, it makes it easier for them to lie to us later on, because we think, oh, it's always been this way, or oh, I
Yeah,
guess
the very Angloized form of history.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I there are so many, and I've read so much historically because I'm super orgulloso mexicana, like every day, all day, hashtag chingona scholar,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly.
And my grandma came, you know, carried over in the arms of her mom when she was a toddler, you know, illegal into this country, but it wasn't really illegal. Like her tias, they came to go stay with their tias who lived across the border, and like back and forth. And anyway,
Yeah, all of our grandparents came from Mexico.
yeah, that
My
generation,
grandfather did, yeah.
absolutely, you know. So and I think about how hard it was for my parents, you know, to be first generation. And I know that like my mom's parents, I love them so much, they're up there. And my
Mhm.
dad's parents, I love them so much, they're up there, they already passed, but like they wanted to make it here and it was already Angloized, and they had to give up a lot of who they are and were, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And try to force their kids
To fit in.
to fit in, to do more, do better than the other people
Mhm.
that are from here, you know, study more
Right.
and do this. So it's a lot to think about culturally what they had to do. So
Yeah.
what I want for you to do between this time and next time we meet, because I have another social studies 4 through 8 person, so we can meet again for this
Okay.
after you've done, you know, some of your deep dive. You can show me what you've done, send me what you've done so far, and take it one grade level at a time, because you're going to have a lot of people on here that you don't know, because there are a lot of white dudes and you're not going to know them. And
A lot
like,
of
and
white
some of, no, and some of, yeah. And some of the people, you know, from the Mexican army side and all of that, I'm unfamiliar with, some of it, you know. We looked at the Turtle Bayou. We looked at something else. It was a really weird
Was it from your other tutoring, which was the like a I looked at the term of it,
the empresario.
empresario, and then I was kind of like, well, if you go Spanish term, it's like estaba emprestado for a while to see
Yeah.
what you can do with it, and if you don't, you know, if you do not prove effective, then we take it back or make it
Right.
off. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a good way to memorize what that is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly.
I
And
try
that's
to
what it
make
is. Te lo presto, te lo presto.
I
Yeah.
try to make lots of connections like that based off grammar. So
Absolutely. And the thing is that that's actually a like a skill, a decoding skill for language, right? Language learning. And so you certainly would want to point that out when you were teaching that to your students, you know,
yes.
especially if you had English language learners, like, hey, this is how you can remember it, because están prestando la tierra, ¿verdad? Están ahí prestado. And then if however you do it. But so, yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're not going to like know about. You will have to look up. So don't get frustrated. Just try to do a little like summary about it and keep it there on your TEXES document. So if you print out that other one, you can write it on the back, or like I said,
Do you think it would be a good
idea
idea to like get like my 4th grade TEKS, you know, hole punch it, or like get a binder for 4th grade TEKS and then a binder for 5th grade, so that way I could just add my note pages for every like section, and then I could like highlight important.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, you can even like put pictures of those different people, or different, like, you know, the different Catholic missions, because I mean, you have to know that. Identify important individuals, events, and issues related to European colonization. Now, I will tell you that some of this stuff you don't have to Google straight out. Remember that you have this
I kind of created a template similar, but here it's gonna have like notes, main idea, and then like a page, a section for like a picture or something. So I could add for like every
Excellent.
section
Yeah,
of
that's
it.
good.
Because I'm
So-
a visual learner. I need
Right. And that's the thing. We don't change later. Like the way that we are, kind of like, if I'm going to go to a lecture, guess where I'm going to be sitting? Like, I want to sit in the front so I can pay attention. I'm going to have my notes, and like, I already know myself and the things, and I do need visuals too. So I might need to look something up on Pinterest, or I might need to see a picture of what this man looks like to help me better, remember it. Let me see. So,
and I printed that whole thing out too. So I have that in my binder, and I'm like, I'm
okay,
gonna keep
cool.
this forever. So that way when I start teaching, I could like, go back and get some more information or something.
Excellent. But why is this one that one? Oh, because it's the PPR. That's why I was like, why was it the PPR one? But you have the social studies. So you might find some of those things that you aren't familiar with listed in this document. This document is like Google in paper form, right? In document form, but not really. You can find a lot of really fast, interesting videos sort of explaining, and we'll find one right now. Do you have to go right now?
If you have another session waiting, we can wrap it up, and then we can definitely meet again, maybe like in another, well, I'm gonna drop in on your PPR session. I just
Okay,
feel like
excellent.
it goes hand in hand anyway, so it can't do me
Absolutely.
any bad to like start. Even though I
Yeah,
haven't passed the
no,
content yet.
absolutely. It does go hand in hand, and you do have some of those type questions, right? Where it's gonna say, Miss Cantu's 6th grade social studies class is learning about, the monarchy. Which of the following activities would be best to increase critical thinking skills? And so you have to know, okay, what would be the best practice to get high critical thinking? What would be the best activity for 6th graders for their grade level? And you'll see the different ones. Some may seem too hard as far as critical thinking, and maybe they're not there at the 6th grade. Maybe you're getting in, and one might be more appropriate. So paying careful detail, knowing best practices will help you choose some of those better answer choices dealing with the instruction and assessment.
Is it at 6 or 6:30?
It's at 6:30.
6:30. Okay.
You know what? We could do it at 6. I kind of like 6 better.
Okay.
I've always done it at 6:30, but I'm gonna do it at 6. I'm gonna tell the office I'm changing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, to me, both times work.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like, by 6 o'clock, me da ansias, and I already want to get started. Like, I'm waiting for it to happen.
Yes.
And then 6:30 maybe is a little, I'm gonna start it at 6. We'll see, because yesterday nobody came, and I invited like 100 people. So I'm very upset. I'm gonna send a very strongly word. No, I'm not.
In all caps.
Yeah, no, I'm not. But I am going to encourage people to come, because I don't want for anybody to leave it to the end. You want to get this monkey off your back and just finish out your first year internship, not having to worry about any of the exams, and just having to worry about supporting your students and changing your instructional plans to meet the needs of students, right? Actually doing the job.
Okay, well then I guess I'll see you on the 2nd, right? November 2nd, Wednesday. That's next Wednesday.
November 2nd. Yes, ma'am. That's it. I had to look. I didn't change my calendar yet. Yes, that's
Alrighty.
all right. You have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you for your
You
time.
too, Stephanie. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.